The ships appeared over Earth on a Tuesday morning. They were massive, dark things that blocked out the sun in 12 major cities around the world. Minho was working on a construction site in Seoul when the shadows fell. He looked up with everyone else, his hand still gripping the steel beam he had been moving. The ships did not fire weapons immediately. Instead, they broadcast a message in every language on Earth. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking words that would change everything. "We are the Vakran Empire. We have come to test your species. This is not invasion. This is evaluation. You have 30 days to prove your worth. Survive, and you join the galactic community. Fail, and your world becomes ours." Minho dropped the beam. Around him, workers began shouting, pointing at the sky. Someone's phone was playing the same message in Korean. The words made no sense. Test? Evaluation? What did that mean? They found out within hours. The Vakran deployed their trial grounds. Large sections of cities were surrounded by shimmering energy barriers. Inside these zones, the aliens hunted humans like animals. They called it honorable. They called it necessary. They said every species must prove itself through combat and survival. Minho's neighborhood was inside one of the barriers. He ran home as chaos erupted around him. Cars stopped working. Phones went dead. The aliens had shut down all modern technology with some kind of field. He saw his first Vakran warrior on the street near his apartment. The creature was tall, covered in dark armor, with 4 arms and glowing red eyes. It moved with the confidence of a predator that had never known fear. The warrior killed 6 people before Minho reached his building. He heard the screams. He saw bodies. His hands shook as he climbed the stairs to his apartment. His wife was not there. She worked across the city, outside the barrier. He did not know if that made her safe or if other barriers had trapped her too. Across the country in Daejeon, Yuna watched the sky from her laboratory window. She was an astrophysicist, someone who had spent her life studying stars. Now the stars had come to her, and they brought only death. Her research facility was in chaos. Scientists ran in every direction. Alarms blared. The military was evacuating important personnel, but the roads were jammed with panicked civilians. Yuna grabbed her laptop and research notes. If technology was failing in some areas, she needed to understand why. She needed data. She joined the evacuation convoy, watching the city burn behind her. In Busan, Jiho was already running. He lived on the streets, surviving by his wits and quick hands. When the aliens came, he knew what to do: hide, watch, learn. He saw the Vakran warriors moving through the market district. They were hunting, but they followed patterns. They announced their presence. They gave their prey time to run before chasing. It was all some twisted game to them. Jiho slipped into the sewers. He knew these tunnels better than anyone. Down here, the aliens' technology did not reach. Down here, he could think. At a military base south of Seoul, Hana stared at screens showing satellite feeds of the invasion. She was a strategist, someone trained to analyze enemy movements and find weaknesses. But this enemy was like nothing in any military manual. The Vakran did not want territory. They did not want resources. They wanted to test humanity, and they were killing thousands to do it. "What are their rules?" she asked her commander. The commander looked at her with tired eyes. "Rules? They said this is a test. Tests have rules. We need to know what they are." The first week was hell. Cities burned. People died. The Vakran moved through their trial grounds with methodical efficiency. They hunted during the day and rested at night. They never killed children under 10. They never attacked hospitals marked with red crosses. They followed their code, even as humans broke and scattered before them, but some humans did not break. Minho found other survivors in his apartment building. They barricaded the lower floors and moved to the upper levels. He used his construction knowledge to reinforce doors and create escape routes. At night, when the Vakran rested, they scavenged for supplies. Minho found a pattern. The aliens were powerful but predictable. They announced themselves before attacking. They never ambushed. It was against their honor. Yuna reached a safe zone outside Dijon. She set up her equipment and began analyzing the technology disruption field. It was not constant. Every 20 minutes, there was a brief window where electronics worked again. Just 2 minutes, but it was something. She shared this information through military channels. Maybe someone could use it. Jiho saved his first person on day 5. A woman trapped in a collapsed building with a Vakran warrior searching nearby. He waited until the alien passed, then pulled her out. She looked at him with shocked, grateful eyes. He motioned for silence and led her to the tunnels. Others were down there now. Other survivors who had found his hiding place. Hana coordinated with scattered military units. Most heavy weapons did not work in the trial grounds, but simple weapons did. Rifles, knives, explosives, the kind of things that did not need computers or electricity. She organized supply drops to resistance groups. She mapped the Vakran patrol routes. She looked for patterns, weaknesses, anything that could help. By the end of week 2, the Vakran expected humanity to be near collapse. Every other species had been broken by now, but reports from their hunters told a different story. Humans were adapting. They were learning. They were starting to fight back. The Vakran High Command was not concerned. They had tested 847 species. None had ever truly threatened them. Humans would be no different. They were wrong. 3 weeks into the trial, something was wrong. The Vakran commanders studied their reports with growing confusion. Human casualties were slowing down. Prey was becoming harder to find. Hunting parties were encountering organized resistance instead of scattered, terrified civilians. Minho's group had grown to 40 people. They occupied 3 apartment buildings connected by makeshift bridges. He taught them everything he knew about construction and demolition. They created traps using simple materials, falling debris, pitfalls, collapsed corridors that looked safe but were not. The Vakran never expected traps. Their honor code forbade such tactics in their own culture. The first alien died on day 16. A Vakran warrior stepped onto a weakened floor that Minho's team had prepared. The creature fell 3 stories into a basement filled with sharpened rebar. It took the alien 20 minutes to die. Its screams echoed through the ruins. Other Vakran heard those screams. They came to investigate and found only empty buildings. Minho watched from a hidden position. His hands were steady now. Fear had turned into something else, something cold and focused. He had learned that these aliens, for all their power and technology, were stupid in some ways. They followed patterns. They never changed tactics. They relied on strength and honor instead of strategy. Yuna had made it to a military research facility. She worked with other scientists to study captured Vakran equipment. Every hunting party carried communication devices. Every warrior wore armor with built-in systems. These things stopped working during the suppression field, but in those 2-minute windows, they came back online. She discovered something important. The Vakran communication system was not encrypted. They did not expect anyone to understand their language, so they did not bother hiding their signals. Yuna and her team built simple receivers. They could not send messages, but they could listen. They heard Vakran commanders coordinating hunts. They heard patrol schedules. They heard everything. This information spread through the resistance networks. Hana received it at her command post. She immediately saw the opportunity. If they knew where the Vakran would be, they could avoid them. Better yet, they could prepare ambushes. Jiho's tunnel network had become a highway for survivors. Over 200 people moved through the sewers of Busan, invisible to the aliens above. He organized them into teams: scouts, scavengers, fighters. The scouts learned to move through the ruins silently. They watched Vakran patrols and mapped their routes. The scavengers gathered supplies during the night. The fighters prepared for something bigger. On day 20, Jiho's team made their move. They had found a pattern. Every evening, a single Vakran warrior inspected a supply depot near the waterfront. It always came alone. It always followed the same path. Jiho placed his people along that path with simple weapons, knives, clubs, a few old hunting rifles that still worked. The alien came as expected. The first rifle shot missed. The warrior turned, raising its weapon. But it did not account for the fighters hiding in the shadows. They attacked from all sides at once. The Vakran was strong and fast, but there were 15 humans and only one alien. It died after a brutal fight that lasted less than a minute. Jiho's people took its weapon and armor. They dragged the body into the water. When other Vakran came looking, they found nothing. Just an empty street and a missing warrior. Hana coordinated attacks across multiple cities. Small groups hit Vakran patrols during the 2-minute technology windows. A rocket launcher fired during those 2 minutes could work. A remote detonation could trigger. Then the suppression field came back, and the humans scattered before the aliens could respond effectively. The Vakran increased their hunter deployments. They sent more warriors into the trial grounds. But this did not help. More warriors meant more targets, more patterns to exploit. The humans were learning faster than the aliens could adapt. Minho's group killed 3 more Vakran in week 3. They used the same tactics every time. Traps, ambushes, overwhelming numbers. The aliens were individually superior fighters, but they always hunted alone or in pairs. Their honor code demanded single combat or small group challenges. They did not understand that humans did not care about honor. They cared about survival. Yuna made another breakthrough. The suppression field generators were located on the Vakran ships, but the field was not perfect. Underground areas had weaker suppression. Deep basements, subway tunnels, anything below ground level. Electronics worked better there. She spread this information through every channel she could access. Resistance groups began operating from underground bases. They set up communication networks in subway systems. They stored weapons and supplies in basement bunkers. The Vakran controlled the surface, but humans were taking back the underground. Jiho expanded his tunnel operations. He connected different parts of the city through the sewer system. Teams could move from one district to another without ever showing themselves above ground. The Vakran had no idea these passages existed. Their technology did not scan deep enough underground. On day 28, Hana received a message from Vakran High Command. It was broadcast to all human military frequencies. The message was simple. Humanity had passed the test. They had survived 30 days. The trial would end in 2 days. The Vakran would withdraw their trial grounds and offer Earth a place in the galactic community. Hana stared at the message. Around her, officers cheered. They had won. They had survived. But Hana did not cheer. She thought about the 50 million people who died. 50 million humans killed in a test. Murdered to satisfy some alien notion of honor and worthiness. The Vakran would leave, and they expected humans to be grateful. She sent a message to Minho, Yuna, and Jiho. She sent it to every resistance leader she had contact with. The message was short. They think the test is over. Let's show them it is just beginning. Minho read the message in his fortified building. He looked at his people, dirty and tired, but alive. They had survived by learning to fight. They had killed aliens that considered themselves superior. And now those aliens wanted to leave as if nothing had happened. Yuna read the message in her laboratory. She thought about all the data she had collected. She knew how Vakran technology worked now. She knew their communication systems, their patrol patterns, their weaknesses. Jiho read the message in his tunnels. He had an army down here. 200 people who trusted him. 200 survivors who wanted justice, not peace. All across Earth, resistance fighters received Hana's message. They had 2 days before the trial ended. 2 days to prepare for what came next. The Vakran thought they had tested humanity and won. They would soon learn their mistake. Day 30 arrived. The Vakran began powering down their trial grounds. Energy barriers started to flicker and fade. Suppression fields weakened as the aliens prepared to withdraw. In their ships above Earth, commanders congratulated themselves on another successful evaluation. Humanity had passed. They had proven themselves worthy. Now the Vakran would leave and report their findings to the Empire. They did not expect what happened next. Hana sat in a command center that had been dark for a month. As the suppression fields failed, power came back online. Computer screens flickered to life. Communication systems reconnected. Military satellites came back under human control. She looked at the data flooding in and smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Send the message," she told her communications officer. Every Vakran ship received the broadcast simultaneously. Hana's face appeared on their screens. She spoke in English, knowing their translation systems would work now. "You killed 50 million of us. You called it a test. You called it honorable. We call it murder. You say we passed. We say you failed. You tested if we could survive. Now we test if you can." The message included coordinates, navigation data, ship positions, supply route information, everything Jiho had stolen from their command center during a daring raid on day 29. Everything Yuna's team had gathered from intercepted communications. The Vakran realized with horror that humans had been listening to their every word for weeks. But the message was not a threat. It was a declaration. Minho's team hit the first target, a Vakran supply depot in Seoul. They struck during the confusion of the withdrawal. The aliens were loading equipment, preparing to leave. They did not expect an attack now that the trial was over. 40 humans with captured Vakran weapons stormed the depot. The fight was brutal and short. Minho's people had been practicing with the alien weapons for days. They knew how to use them now. 3 Vakran warriors died. The rest fled to their ships. The humans took everything in the depot: weapons, armor, supplies, and one small transport craft. Yuna had taught them how to operate it using the data she had collected. Across the planet, similar attacks happened. Resistance groups struck at Vakran positions simultaneously. The aliens had expected peace. They got war. Jiho led his tunnel fighters above ground for the first time. 200 people poured out of the sewers in coordinated strikes across Busan. They hit Vakran patrols, supply lines, and communication outposts. The aliens tried to respond, but their forces were scattered, preparing for departure. They were not ready for organized military action. The Vakran war commander, Thrak, watched the attacks from his flagship. This was impossible. The test was over. Humans should have been celebrating their survival, grateful for the Vakran's mercy. Instead, they were attacking like cornered animals. No, not animals. Animals did not coordinate like this. Animals did not plan and execute simultaneous strikes across multiple continents. Animals did not steal technology and learn to use it in days. Thrak sent a message to Earth's military command. "The trial is over. We acknowledge your worthiness. These attacks must stop immediately, or we will consider them acts of war." Hana's response was broadcast to every human and Vakran receiver on the planet. "You started this war when you murdered 50 million people. We are simply finishing it. You wanted to test our survival skills. Congratulations. We survived. We adapted. We learned. And now we are teaching you what that means." The attacks intensified. Minho's group coordinated with other cells in Seoul. They moved through the ruins like ghosts, hitting targets and disappearing before the Vakran could respond. They used the aliens' own honor code against them. When Vakran warriors came to fight, expecting single combat, they found ambushes instead. They found traps. They found humans who did not care about fighting fair. Yuna's breakthrough came on day 32. Her team successfully hacked a Vakran corvette's systems. The ship was small, designed for orbital patrols, but it was spaceworthy. It had weapons. It had shields. and now humans controlled it. She brought it down to a secure landing zone outside her facility. Engineers swarmed over it, studying every system. Within hours, they understood the basics. Within a day, they had pilots training on its controls. The Corvette was designed for a Vakran crew of 4. It could fit 20 humans easily. Jiho's network expanded above ground. His tunnel fighters had proven themselves in combat. They recruited more survivors from the ruins. People who had lost everything to the Vakran test. People who wanted revenge. His force grew to over 500 fighters in 3 days. The Vakran tried to restore order. They deployed hunter battalions into the cities. Elite warriors who had trained for decades came to Earth expecting easy victories. They found death instead. 1 battalion entered Busan. Jiho's people were waiting. They had spent weeks mapping every building, every alley, every hiding spot. The Vakran moved through the ruins in formation, calling out challenges in their language. No one answered. Then the attacks began. Snipers with captured Vakran rifles, ambushes from collapsed buildings, traps that brought down entire structures. The battalion fought back, but they could not hit what they could not see. Humans attacked and vanished, struck and scattered, never gave the aliens the honorable combat they wanted. By the end of the day, the battalion was destroyed. Not a single Vakran survived. Jiho's people suffered casualties too, but they had won. They had wiped out an elite force that had never known defeat. The news spread through Vakran military channels. Human interceptors picked it up. Yuna translated the messages. The aliens were afraid. For the first time in their long history of testing species, the Vakran were experiencing fear. Thrak called for reinforcements from the Empire. He sent detailed reports about human tactics. He warned that this species was different from anything they had encountered. He requested authorization to deploy orbital weapons and end the resistance. The Empire's response came 3 days later. It was not what he expected. Disengage immediately. Begin full evacuation. No further combat operations authorized. Classify Earth as Omega-level threat. No Vakran forces are to engage humans under any circumstances. Thrak could not believe what he was reading. The Empire was ordering a retreat. They were abandoning the trial. They were declaring humans too dangerous. He tried to argue. He sent more reports. He explained that with proper force, humans could be contained. But the Empire's response was final. You tested them to see if they could survive. They did. You wanted to know if they were worthy. They are. Now leave before we lose more warriors to this nightmare world. The evacuation began. Vakran forces pulled back to their ships. They abandoned equipment and outposts. They fled from the cities they had terrorized for a month. Hana watched the retreat from her command center. Around her, officers celebrated. But she did not celebrate. She knew this was not over. The Vakran were leaving, but they would remember Earth. They would tell other species about humanity. That could be good or bad. It was time to make sure it was good. She sent one final message to the Vakran flagship. Thrak received it personally. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that humans do not forget. Tell them we know where your worlds are. We are not coming for revenge, but we want the galaxy to know. You tested us. We passed. And if anyone else wants to test humanity, they should remember what happened to you. The Vakran evacuation should have been orderly. They were a military species with thousands of years of experience. But nothing about Earth had gone according to their plans, and the withdrawal was no different. Minho led raids on departing convoys. The Vakran were trying to remove their equipment and technology, but humans had other ideas. Every transport that left a city was attacked. Every supply column became a target. The aliens wanted to leave nothing behind. Humans wanted to take everything. His team hit a major convoy on the highway outside Seoul. 20 Vakran vehicles moving toward their landing zones. Minho's people had spent 2 days preparing the ambush. They used captured Vakran explosives, planted along the road in the middle of the night. When the convoy reached the kill zone, the humans triggered everything at once. The first 5 vehicles were destroyed instantly. The convoy stopped. Vakran warriors poured out, weapons ready, scanning for enemies. They found no one. The humans were hidden in buildings 300 meters away, using long-range weapons. By the time the Vakran located the attackers, half their force was dead. The aliens tried to retreat, but Minho had blocked the road behind them. More explosives, more ambushes. The Vakran were trapped. They fought bravely according to their code, but bravery did not stop bullets. It did not stop grenades. 16 Vakran died on that highway. 4 escaped on foot. The humans took everything from the destroyed convoy. Yuna was making incredible progress with the captured corvette. Her team had fully mapped its systems. They understood the propulsion, the weapons, the life support. More importantly, they had accessed its navigation computer. The ship's memory contained coordinates for every Vakran military base within 50 light years, every supply depot, every colony world. She copied all of it. Then she shared it with every government and military organization on Earth. The information spread like fire. Humanity now knew exactly where the Vakran Empire's local forces were positioned. They knew supply routes, patrol schedules, everything. But Yuna wanted more. She studied the FTL drive system. Faster than light travel was supposed to be impossible according to human physics. The Vakran had proven that wrong. Now Yuna was determined to understand how. Her team worked around the clock, documenting every component, every energy reading, every quantum fluctuation. On the 10th day of evacuation, she had her breakthrough. The FTL drive was not as complex as she had feared. It was elegant, simple in its core principles. She could not build one yet, but she understood how it worked. Given time and resources, humans could replicate this technology. She sent her findings to research facilities worldwide. Earth did not just have one captured ship now. Earth had the knowledge to reach the stars. Jiho had become something of a legend among survivors. Stories spread about the man who lived in tunnels and killed aliens in the dark. Vakran warriors spoke his name with something close to fear. They called him the Ghost of Busan in their own language. He used that fear. His network of fighters had grown to over 1,000 now. They controlled the underground of 3 major cities. When Vakran forces tried to evacuate through those cities, they found Jiho waiting. A Vakran battalion entered Busan to secure a landing zone for final evacuations. 500 warriors, heavily armed, expecting resistance. They got more than they expected. Jiho hit them from every direction at once. Snipers from ruined buildings, fighters emerging from sewers behind their lines, traps in every street. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Vakran fought with desperate courage. They knew they were dying. They knew the Empire had ordered evacuation, but they could not leave their comrades behind. That was their code. That was their weakness. By nightfall, the battalion was gone. Every single warrior dead. Jiho's people had taken heavy casualties too, but they had won. More importantly, they had captured intact Vakran weapons, armor, and communication equipment. The technology hall was enormous. Hana coordinated everything from her command center. She had communication with resistance groups across the planet now. The suppression fields were gone. Military satellites were back online. She could see the full scope of the evacuation and plan accordingly. She noticed something interesting. The Vakran were abandoning their forward bases, but keeping their main command ships in orbit. They were not fully withdrawing. They were staying close enough to monitor Earth. Maybe they planned to return. Maybe they were just watching to make sure humans did not follow them. Hana decided to send a message they could not ignore. She contacted Jiho. "That landing zone the battalion tried to secure, is it still operational?" "Yes," Jiho replied. "Why?" "I need you to capture it intact. Don't destroy it. We are going to use it." Jiho gathered his best fighters. They assaulted the landing zone at dawn. The Vakran defenders were already demoralized. Their battalion had been wiped out. They knew more humans were coming. When Jiho's force attacked, the aliens barely resisted. They fled to their ships and escaped into orbit. The landing zone was humanity's now. More importantly, the 3 Vakran transport ships parked there were humanity's. Yuna's team had taught other engineers how to operate Vakran technology. Within hours, human pilots were learning to fly alien ships. Thrak watched from orbit as his forces continued to retreat. Every day brought new disasters. More convoys destroyed, more warriors killed, more equipment captured. The humans were not just resisting now, they were winning. He received reports that made his blood run cold. Humans were flying Vakran ships. They had cracked the navigation systems. They knew where Vakran worlds were located. This was beyond anything he had imagined. The Empire sent him another message. Immediate evacuation required. All forces must withdraw within 5 days. No exceptions. Earth is now classified as forbidden territory. Thrak began the final withdrawal. He pulled every remaining warrior off the surface. He abandoned everything that could not be quickly loaded onto ships. He just wanted to leave this cursed world behind. But Hana had one more surprise for him. On the final day of evacuation, as the last Vakran ships prepared to depart, 3 captured Vakran transports lifted off from Earth. They climbed into orbit on human-controlled flight paths. Thrak's sensors tracked them with alarm. The transports took up position between Earth and the Vakran fleet. They did not attack. They did not threaten. They just hovered there, demonstrating that humans could reach orbit now, that they could operate Vakran technology, that they could follow the Vakran anywhere they went. Hana sent one final transmission to Thrak's flagship. "We want you to see this. We want you to know that we can reach you now. We are not attacking. We are not following. But we want you to understand something. You tested whether we could survive. We did. You tested whether we were worthy. We are. Now you know what that really means. Tell your empire. Tell every species in the galaxy. Humans do not forget. Humans do not forgive, and humans can reach the stars now." The transmission ended. The 3 human-controlled ships descended back to Earth. They had made their point. Thrak's fleet jumped to FTL 30 minutes later. They fled from Earth's system as fast as their drives could carry them. Behind them, they left a species they had tried to test, a species they had underestimated, a species that would never be the same. In his private quarters, Thrak composed his final report to the Empire. He chose his words carefully. "Humanity passed the trial, but we failed the test. We tested if they could survive. They tested if we could. We barely escaped. Recommend immediate and permanent prohibition on all contact with Earth. Classification, Omega-level threat. Reason, they learn too fast. They adapt too quickly. They have no honor, but they have something more dangerous. They have the will to win at any cost." He sent the report and sat in silence, thinking about the humans he had fought. Thinking about Minho, Yuna, Jiho, and Hana, though he did not know their names. Thinking about a species that had turned his trial into their victory. The Vakran Empire would never test another species the same way again. 3 months after the Vakran left, Earth was still burning. Not from alien weapons anymore, but from the fire of rebuilding. Cities rose from ruins. Survivors came together. The world had changed forever, and humanity was changing with it. Minho stood in the ruins of his old construction site in Seoul. Around him, crews were clearing debris and laying foundations for new buildings. But these were not ordinary buildings. These were fortified structures, designed to serve as shelter and defense if aliens ever returned. Every new building in every city incorporated lessons learned from the invasion. He was different now, too. The construction worker who had trembled at the first sight of Vakran warriors was gone. In his place stood a man who had led resistance fighters, killed alien soldiers, and helped turn humanity's darkest month into a victory. His hands were scarred. His eyes were harder, but he was still building, still creating, still moving forward. His wife had survived. She had been outside the trial ground barriers, in a different part of the city. They had reunited after the evacuation. She looked at him now with a mixture of pride and sadness. She knew what he had done to survive. She knew what it had cost him. But she also knew it had been necessary. "We are building monuments next month," Minho told his crew. "For the 50 million who died. Every city will have one. We will never forget them." His workers nodded. Every person on that construction site had lost someone. Family, friends, neighbors. The Vakran had called it a test. Humanity called it genocide. The galaxy would learn the difference. Yuna worked in a new facility built specifically for studying alien technology. The captured Vakran ships and equipment had been distributed to research centers worldwide. Every nation wanted to understand the technology. Every scientist wanted to unlock its secrets. She had become the leading expert on Vakran systems. Her team had successfully reverse-engineered the basic FTL drive principles. They could not build one yet. The materials required did not exist on Earth. The energy requirements were beyond current human capability. But they understood the theory now. Given 10 years, maybe 20, humans would reach the stars on their own. More importantly, Yuna had cracked the Vakran communication network completely. Earth now listened to their military channels constantly. Humans heard every message, every report, every piece of intelligence. The Vakran did not know their communications were compromised. They thought humans had just gotten lucky during the invasion. That ignorance was humanity's advantage now. Yuna had learned something interesting from the intercepted messages. The Vakran Empire was in chaos. Their testing program had been suspended. Multiple species were questioning the trials. Some were even rebelling, inspired by humanity's successful resistance. The Empire had tested 847 species over thousands of years, but they had never faced consequences before. Now they were facing them from multiple directions. She smiled as she translated the latest message. The Vakran High Council was debating whether to classify humans as a full Omega-level threat. The debate was not going well. Half the council wanted to launch a full invasion to eliminate the threat. The other half wanted to never go near Earth again. The compromise was a complete ban on contact, with Earth's solar system marked as forbidden territory. Humanity had won not just their own freedom, but they had broken the system that had oppressed hundreds of species. Jiho no longer lived in tunnels. His underground network had become the foundation for a new organization. Earth Defense Force, they called it. A global military unit trained specifically to fight alien threats. Jiho was one of its founding members, training new soldiers in the tactics that had defeated the Vakran. He taught them to think like survivors, not soldiers. "Aliens will have better technology," he told his students. "They will have superior weapons and armor, but they will not have our adaptability. They will not have our willingness to do whatever it takes to win." His classes were always full. Young people who had lived through the invasion. People who wanted to make sure it never happened again. People who understood that humanity's safety depended on being too dangerous to attack. Jiho trained them in guerrilla warfare, urban combat, and unconventional tactics. He taught them to fight without honor, without rules, without mercy. The Vakran had taught humanity a valuable lesson. In the universe, survival mattered more than fairness. He kept his tunnel network operational too. Beneath major cities around the world, hidden passages connected defense bunkers and supply depots. If aliens came again, humanity would disappear underground and emerge only to strike. The surface might fall, but the underground would remain unconquered. Hana had been promoted to commander of Earth's United Defense Fleet. The fleet was small now, just 3 captured Vakran corvettes and 5 transports, but it was growing. Nations were pooling resources to build more ships using reverse-engineered technology. Within a year, Earth would have 20 ships. Within 5 years, maybe 50. She sat in her office at the new military headquarters, reviewing reports from around the world. The rebuilding was progressing well. Casualties from the invasion were estimated at 50 million dead, with another 100 million injured or displaced. It was the greatest tragedy in human history. But humanity had survived, and now they were preparing for the future. Her computer chimed. Another intercepted Vakran transmission. She read it carefully, her expression neutral. The message was from the Empire's intelligence division to all forward bases. It contained updated threat assessments for multiple species. Earth's entry made her smile. Species, human. Classification, Omega-level threat, do not engage. Notes, highly adaptive, learns enemy tactics within days. No honor code, will use any method to win. Successfully repelled trial evaluation. Captured Vakran technology and reverse-engineered basic systems. Currently developing indigenous FTL capability. Recommend complete avoidance. If contact is unavoidable, deploy maximum force or retreat immediately. The report continued with tactical assessments. It detailed human ambush tactics, psychological warfare methods, and adaptation capabilities. It read like a horror story from the Vakran perspective. An entire species that had gone from pre-FTL civilization to legitimate threat in 30 days. Hana saved the report and composed a message to the other resistance leaders. Minho, Yuna, and Jiho received it within minutes. The Vakran are warning their entire empire about us. We are officially classified as too dangerous to fight. They are teaching their soldiers to avoid contact with humans. We have achieved something incredible. We have made the galaxy afraid of us. But her message did not end there. However, we must not become complacent. The Vakran were one species. There are thousands more out there. Some will be stronger. Some will be smarter. Some will not care about trials or honor. We must continue preparing. We must reach the stars ourselves, and we must make sure every species in the galaxy knows the truth. Humans are survivors. Humans are fighters. And humans will never be victims again. Minho read the message on his construction site. He thought about the monuments they would build, the memorials for the dead, the warnings for the future. He nodded to himself and went back to work. Yuna read it in her laboratory. She looked at the Vakran ship components spread across her workbenches. She thought about FTL drives and energy weapons and all the technology humans would master. She smiled and returned to her calculations. Jiho read it in his training facility. He watched his students practicing urban combat drills. He saw the determination in their eyes, the hunger to protect their world. He approved the message and continued his class. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Humanity had been tested by the Vakran and had passed in ways the aliens never expected. They had not just survived. They had won, they had learned, they had adapted. Now they were preparing for the next challenge. In orbit around a distant Vakran colony world, a military commander studied the latest intelligence reports. The Empire had thousands of species under its control, hundreds of colony worlds, millions of warriors. They were still the dominant power in their region of space. But the commander could not stop thinking about the reports from Earth. A pre-FTL species had destroyed elite battalions, had captured ships, had learned Vakran technology in weeks, had sent a message that echoed through the Empire. "We know where you live." The commander marked Earth's coordinates in red on the star map, then added a notation: "Forbidden Zone. Do not approach under any circumstances." Somewhere in the darkness of space, between Earth and the Vakran Empire, a line had been drawn, not by treaty or agreement, but by fear and respect. The Vakran had come to test humanity. They had learned that some species should never be tested. They had learned that survivors are the most dangerous prey of all. On Earth, construction continued, research continued, training continued. Humanity looked up at the stars with new eyes, not with wonder anymore, but with determination. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of species that thought themselves superior. They would all learn the same lesson the Vakran had learned. Humans do not ask permission to exist. They do not beg for mercy. They do not submit to tests. They survive. They adapt. They overcome. And they remember. Always.